You have entered the black hole of real estate where you can get industry news and tips and strategies. Once you enter the black hole, you're going to find it hard to leave because you're going to like what we have here. I'm your host, Ron Wysokarski, and welcome back to the black hole of real estate. So we are here for episode 18, and we've got some great things to talk about today. Economic news on the real estate front, self-employed borrowers and what's going on with that. How does that get accomplished these days? And we're going to talk a little bit about commercial and some tips and strategies. And then at the end, the parents' purchase of a home for their kids. What's changed with that? And what should you know as a parent if you're going to embark on that little bit of a journey? So the first thing is the economic news that came out this week. They're going to keep lending rates where they are for the foreseeable future, according to Fed. At least that's what we're being told. And I honestly can't see a reason for that to change. Now, we've seen some interesting news as far as where businesses are. And of course, we see the sky might be falling and doom and gloom on the horizon, but the stock market is raging forward. The Fed is keeping things in line, and I don't see any slowdown of buyers buying property. So I think it's a matter of trusting that the sources you're using are impactful and important to you. But right now, we're almost defying the logic of fundamentals. It's almost like the rules have changed and no one told all of our advisors. So this just bears a close watch right now. It continues to be a seller's market in the real estate space. And I have no idea what Wall Street is doing, except for looks like everybody's doing well. So we'll see what that looks like down the road. But right now, maybe we need to get on a financial podcast to understand more about exactly why the market continues to go despite all the effects of COVID that's in front of us right now. Hey, maybe things are okay. As far as the self-employed borrower, if you are self-employed and looking to purchase property in 2020, if you haven't seen or heard about it, here's the direct news for you. Your 2018 and 2019 tax returns, the banks are going to want to see those. And if you haven't filed 2019, this just in because you don't have to have it done till September 15th. A lot of people are holding off, letting the government know what happened in 2019, and who could blame them? So right now, what they want to see are your last 3 months of business and all the income coming into that. Is that remaining consistent with what you've had the last year or two? And if it isn't, they're going to fall to that lower common denominator, what you're making now versus what you made before. So if you haven't filed those returns, or maybe what you've made in the last 3 months, COVID or not, is a little bit off, you may have a little more difficulty purchasing a property with financing than you might have had in other situations. Historically, you give them the last couple of years of your income in a P&L, and that seems to work, but they're really getting granular on the bank statements right now. So if your income during these last 3 months is different, they're going to use that income versus what your tax return says. So it's the banks assessing their risk, and who can blame them? It's their money. But they're being a little bit more choosy about who they give a mortgage to in this environment specific to the self-employed borrower. So if you are thinking about a commercial purchase, there's 3 tips and strategies that we want to talk about. The first one is location. I guess that's 3 for 1. But, what is your location looking like these days? So if it's on a busy street, do you have, is it 1 curb cut, 2 curb cuts, no curb cuts? You want to make sure that the space is going to do what you want it to do. So when you look at location, is it good for your business or good for traffic? If you have a business where people are coming to, if you're self-storage or a different type of business that's manufactured that does not require to be in a busy highway, you could save some money, and those might be less important. But we should really be looking at, is the location suitable for the type of business that you have and suitable for the type of property that you want to be investing in for your business? Because right now there could be some weakness in the commercial space, and it might be a time to look at it. So if you're self-employed, like we just talked about, looking to make that purchase for your business, you definitely need to double down on what that qualification looks like. And then if it makes sense to make that purchase right now, if there becomes weakness in the commercial space, this could be a very opportune time for a business to buy some property. Now, along the way, we've mentioned location. Does it do what you want to do? Not every location is suitable for every type of business. So think of it this way. If you have something that requires incoming people to visit the property, then you have to make sure there's enough parking. In Florida, you always have to retain your water. So if you're developing, there's going to be some area that's going to be unusable for the actual business either to retain water, to make it go to the storm drains, or maybe even a utility easement among common properties. So due diligence is going to be super important when you look at commercial space. They're absolutely going to assign a number of parking spots that are mandatory along with the ADA compliant pieces based on if you're industrial and it's just people coming to work, or if you have a certain inflow of traffic for a business. If it's retail space, there's going to be a factor that plays into that as well. And just the conformity piece as well. You're probably not likely to be able to put in a machine shop if you're next to a residential property or bordering on some other type of retail businesses. That's something to be looked at. Now, the third tip and strategy is to talk about the zoning piece. With zoning, what that means is you're going to have to go to the local municipality and make sure that you're zoned for the type of business that you're wanting to place there. Think of it this way. If you see an open space and it's on a busy road and you're thinking this would be a great place to have a used car lot, it might be. But if you're next to a hotel or a motel or a storage business or something else like that, it may not conform to the area. So you may need to get a variance with the zoning. And right now, since they're not meeting often and not pushing a lot of things through, you might run into some headwinds there. So if you're looking to change the usage of a property, that is absolutely something you're going to want to build in more due diligence time for it. But it's super important to the way that you run your business. And with that, you may back up on some areas to where it's actually residential behind you as well. So that could add an additional layer. You may need some buffering, some landscaping. You may not be able to use that commercial space along with the residential space if you're buying a pass-through property. All these are questions that you want to address, with your local professional to make sure that you're not only choosing the right location and the property will do what you want it to do, but we also have to make sure that the government and the zoning is also on board with what your goals are. It's not as hard of a process as it might sound like, but if you take a misstep, you might end up purchasing a property that you ultimately can't build on, at least for your intended purpose. And that's really not a pivot we want to take in this market. So the last thing that we want to talk about is parents. Have you thought about buying a property for your kids? Whether you want to or not, it's something that we see is more prevalent right now. During COVID times, let's face it, some people have missed some payments, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So if you have kids that either own a home or are renting and looking to purchase their first home, they may be selling a property, and they're going to have some money, proceeds to put towards their purchase. The problem might be this. Let's say that they missed a payment during COVID. The bank is going to look negatively towards that as a higher risk factor. So maybe they made payments for 3, 4, 5 years in a row without missing, but maybe they missed one in the last 3 months. It happens, or they were in a forbearance situation. They may not be able to get their own mortgage this time around, and it's a high punishment for that one missed payment, but it's happening. And we're seeing parents coming to the rescue. Say, listen, we'll purchase the property for you, and then you could buy it from us, or we'll work things out down the road. And if you're in that situation, a couple things to think about. The first thing is most parents, whether they seek the advice of an attorney or not, that's your call. They're probably purchasing the home in the parent's name, not the kid's name. And the reason is pretty simple. Things change. Kids, they really become tenants in this situation. And if the parents need to sell their property for one reason or another, like the kids didn't make the payments, or maybe they're married and they have, marital non-bliss, the parents may not be able to actually sell that property to recoup their personal investment in their child's future. Now, we don't want to think about that or talk about that, but maybe we should. So what does it look like for a parent? Well, if you're putting the property in just your name, you can work out something down the road with your attorney, whether it's a trust or I guess your will, something that tethers, some way to move the property over to your kids at some point in time. It also gives you a lot of financial flexibility as far as if you need to liquidate the property, you don't need your kids' permission to sell the house that you bought for them. Now, what's in it for the kids? Well, for whatever reason, good or bad, they can't get a mortgage on their own. Their option is to stay in the house they're in, to sell it and get some of that equity back in cash, and maybe they can give that part of that down payment or all of it to the parents to assist with this purchase. But the kids really don't have a lot of options right now. Stay in the home that you're in, make another year's worth of payments and prove to the bank that you're stable, or sell the property, take the cash, and then invest it in the next property. That would be one way. As a parent, if you're putting the down payment down on the new property and the kids are getting all the equity in cash for the one they just sold, you might have to ask yourself, is this a good idea? We don't know for sure. Your relationship with your family is, well, it's yours. Now, if it's a finance purchase, you're going to have to put it in your own name. It goes on your own credit. And now you've got one or two mortgage payments. You're financially responsible for that until you're not. So if the kids don't pay you the rent, you're on the hook for all of that. And that can cause some family strife. So before we even cross that bridge, just think about what that means to your family structure and how you want to interact with your family, and what stresses you want to add on to the additional stresses that we're already living with in COVID right now, and just general family stuff. It's not always just COVID. It's just family stuff. The next thing I would say is if you purchase it with cash, then you can look at options of placing it in a trust. A lender's not going to let you put it in a trust. They want it in your name so they can actually foreclose on you if the payments aren't made. But if you purchase with cash, now you can look at maybe a trust. And now your personal attorney could write that trust, and they have specific guidelines on how the property might convey in the future, who owns the property, what rights are in there. If the kids are paying what amounts to rent, how much of that goes towards the eventual purchase price, that could one day be documented for the lender to show where the down payment came from. All these things can be worked out. If you purchase the cash, then absolutely look at having some sort of a trust or something that your attorney might recommend to protect yourself and also give a path for your kids to buy that property from you. So if you are a parent and you really want to help out your kids, that's awesome. And you should really look at it. Just, let's go in with our eyes open. Let's make sure that this is doing the right thing for everybody to make a win-win. I'm working with several people right now in this very situation. And as parents, we want to do the right things for our kids. We just need to make sure that we don't get in a financial situation where the table might get turned. Well, we might become a burden to our kids if we get in financial trouble, even if it's our own undoing is because of them. Fast forward 5 or 10 years when we need their help, they may or may not be able to help us the same way that we're helping them. And it's just an honest conversation with the family. So my recommendation is absolutely help out the kids, get your information, consult with an attorney if you need to, and a local real estate professional to help you get things structured. And that is absolutely a way to help your kids out in this market. And that's what I have for you for this week at the Black Hole of Real Estate. We look forward to having you guys tune in next time.